Today I have two very special guests here on the stream. I have game director Chris Clay and I have community manager Meals. So welcome Clay and Meals. How are you doing today?
Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Both myself and Meals are super happy to be here and get to answer some questions.
Okay.
Yep, so I'm testing my mic as well. Can you guys hear me?
Okay, wonderful. Good thing we had the backup plan ready. All right. Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, start with some questions for you, Meals. I know that GU, or as we know, GU uses Discord as the primary platform to communicate with users, and this is your domain. And I wanted to know what was the motivation behind choosing Discord as the primary platform?
Yeah, so we were actually already using Discord quite a bit when I joined the company. But I think it makes a lot of sense as a platform because you get to kind of engage with the community in real time, something that a lot of the other platforms don't really offer. I find it super valuable to kind of, go in. If there's any misconceptions about things, I can clear them up and I can be helping everybody and kind of seeing the conversations going down in real time. That makes it really great for, collecting user feedback and things like that. Probably better than most other social platforms that we could have chosen. But I think a large degree of it as well is that, you kind of go to the home of where your community is, and the Discord community is super strong. I really enjoy being there. So yeah, it makes sense to kind of default to that one as our primary platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was wondering if it was already something that the community had kind of, was already there for, and so it made it a pretty easy decision. So that's interesting to know. I also was aware that there was a survey at the end of last year asking what users wanted to change about the Discord channels. And I wanted to know how that went, like what you think the impact was, and if you're happy with the current state of the Discord.
Yeah, so I wanted to try and start a new tradition, kind of annually benchmarking this Discord feedback. And so, I tried putting out the survey and I thought, maybe 20 people will respond perhaps, but actually quite a lot of you turned out in full force to kind of respond to that, which was really awesome. And it was good to see the results because it kind of breaks down, the people who are using this, kind of how long have you been around for, where did you join us on your God's Unchained journey? But I think that my favorite part of it was kind of where I opened up the floor and I said, you guys are shaping the platform alongside with me. What do you want to see from the server? And I got a lot of really good responses there. I think that there were often kind of trends in what people were saying. So a lot of people said, we want a direct challenges channel where we can easily find 1v1s. We want to integrate more bots, especially Cardbot was a really popular one that came up a lot of times in there. So I was happy to arrange that. Yeah, and just generally we want to hear more from the team. Maybe you guys should have more of an official presence in there and be more active. So I guess, throughout the first couple of months of the year, I've kind of been, going through that feedback and integrating all the things that you guys want that I can kind of see the value in. There's still a lot more suggestions in there that haven't been implemented yet, but that I would love to implement over time. So I'll keep referring back to that, and you can expect to see another one at the end of 2021. I really want to make them an annual thing.
Awesome. That's so good to hear. And shout out Rid for the card bot. I absolutely love it. We have it in our Twitch chat, and I like using it, very, very
Oh, it's
frequently.
awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I would add on to that, just as a bit of color, is, I've been making games now for over 20 years, and I've used a lot of different approaches for interacting with communities, be the like hosted forums, external forums, we've got Reddit, we've got Twitter, you've got blog posts. And we do weave through a number of those, but one of the big advantages of having a community like Discord is it's one of the few places where the devs can humanize themselves with the players a bit. So often, as a developer, you are this often faceless name, a focus of rage, and in many cases just dehumanized. It's you should be there for me 24/7, and you should always have an answer immediately, and you should always fulfill my requests. And it can be very hard as a developer to sort of be in this place where you're just not considered human. You're just sort of an automaton, working away on the game. When you've got an avenue like Discord, it is a place where you can talk in real time, even if it's via text. You can share some of your personality, and it's very different from something sort of asynchronous like Reddit, or even Twitter, where there can sometimes be hours or even days between replies, which again doesn't give you that sort of humanization. And that lets us build relationships with a lot of the people in the Discord that help benefit the community and the game overall, because it creates a level of trust that you just don't get in some of those other formats.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I didn't touch on, but I completely agree with, in that, you can kind of come on as individuals and you're getting to know us in our distinct roles. We're not kind of just faceless gods unchained. You can come and kind of talk to people in their areas of specialty, which is super cool.
Yeah,
I would say one of the downsides, though, is it can be very difficult as the game grows to keep that, just because we only have so many hours in a day, and as you get many more thousands of players in there, it can be harder to maintain some of those relationships or be there for everyone. I know my DMs sometimes scroll off the side of my Discord, and I'm like, well, I'm going to get through a dozen today, and then the rest will have to wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think it's really nice the way it is now, and being able to connect with you like so directly. But I guess we'll just have to see how it goes as it scales. So my next question, Clay, was for you. You joined the company in July of 2019, right around the start of, or the release of Genesis, I should say. I wanted to know, in your time so far, what have been the biggest areas of impact, in your opinion, for the direction of Gods Unchained?
Yeah, I've been thinking on this one quite a bit since the questions got sent over, and it's actually fairly difficult to answer because, as a game director, when I'm fulfilling my role, I'm often setting direction and then not necessarily there to make the changes myself. So, I want to be clear when I'm answering this. There are many people across the team that actually make a lot of this happen, though I play a role in it. And if I cast back, to 2019, and man, it feels a lot longer than it's been. I think some of the biggest changes that sort of occurred immediately just came around the gameplay itself. So, when I had joined, not all of Genesis was live, not all of Core was live. There were a lot of cards that were, basically unlive just because the functionality wasn't there. We had a client that, showed promise, but had a lot of issues just in the core gameplay. There were lots of hitches. A lot of the animations didn't quite work. Just a ton of bugs. And it's not that we are bug-free today, but I think one of the biggest advancements we've made since then is in the quality of the client. It's smooth on most devices. The animations have taken shape. The overall cohesiveness of the scene itself, like the parts fit together across the UI, the boards, and the cards. And it was a long roll to that. A lot of people took part. And again, there was way more work by other people on this than me, but I think the other major shift was just in the gameplay itself. The introduction of the welcome set, now the evolution with trials, but particularly with the Sanctum, to sort of take us into a different gameplay space than some of the other card games out there. I think the Sanctum was what finally sort of set us apart from some of our competitors out in the space.
Yeah, I think, Clay, you and I must have joined around a similar time to each other. Just seeing how much the game's evolved kind of since we first started and grown over time has just been awesome.
Yeah, the other sort of like more corporate answer that I would probably give on an interview if I was going somewhere else is like, it's just the team. The team has grown and evolved so much since I joined the company. We've added a whole bunch of people in a whole bunch of different roles, and we've developed a level of cohesiveness that didn't quite exist in the beginning. I guess that's not quite fair to say. Like, we had a very tight-knit team when I joined, but I think we've maintained that as we've grown, which can be difficult. But yeah, I think I'm most proud of the team that we've built up over the last 2 years, because that's what lets us move forward.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, as you know, as small companies scale, it's hard to maintain that essence and that core. So I'm really glad to hear that that's the kind of general vibe and feel that you have at the office.
Oh, it's definitely changed. It's not quite the same, but I think most of it's still.
Yeah. Um. All right. So moving on, these questions just are for both of you, but I wanted to talk about IMX. So you currently have completed stage 3 of the IMX rollout and stage 4 Genesis minting. I wanted to know how the progress has been going on that, and yeah, so what can you let us know about it?
Yeah, so when it comes to Genesis minting, part of the challenge there does come down to scale a bit. There are far more Genesis NFTs to get minted, and because we have the cards on the blockchain itself, there's a little bit more technical complexity. But the team is in active development right now on making that happen. The question really comes down to a bunch of factors on exactly when that will go live. One of the harder questions is on when do we open up Genesis trading? Because in theory, we could start minting Genesis tokens into Immutable X, and we could enable trading essentially from day one. Like as they are being minted, you can immediately trade them. But I know I'm currently leaning away from that, and partly is because even if we're doing this randomly, or if we're doing it by order that people register for Immutable X, it does pick winners in that they get essentially early access to the marketplace and Genesis trading. In the sort of, to be fair, we kind of need to do something similar to what we did with trials, where it's like, hey, we give people the opportunity to sign up. We sort of have a date, and then we mint everybody who has signed up and open the marketplace to sort of make it fair. There is a spectrum of how we're going to do that. We're certainly not going to wait until every last Genesis NFT is minted before we open up trading. If people haven't registered for Immutable X, we're not going to wait for them to get around to it. But that's something that I know has been weighing on me a bit on exactly how we're going to handle that rollout. But in active development is about the most I can say.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I understand the perspective of trying to make that fair for early adopters, because there are a lot of cards out there. And yeah, hopefully everybody gets their wallets connected and that goes smooth.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, some of it too is, Immutable X is still a developing platform, and some of it comes down to, continuing to accelerate our rate of minting towards sort of that theoretical max. The more quickly we can mint, the faster this will all happen.
I see. So I wanted to know too, where along the IMX roadmap does the ranked pack allocations happen, and then sales open back up?
Yeah, so that will happen before Genesis goes live. The team is actively working on that as well. So I can say, though, in the sequencing, I expect the prizes to go out first. It is a much easier problem to solve than the Genesis, and just in terms of scope, it's much smaller in terms of the total number of transactions. So sooner rather than after Genesis.
Nice. Good information to have. I appreciate that. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I will say that ended up taking a bit longer than I expected. I know when we had paused sales, that was a rather interesting weekend from my end, in that we were watching things closely, and we absolutely wanted to make sure we were in a place to make good on our commitments with the ranked weekend prizes. So, made the difficult decision to sort of pause things. And things have been paused for longer than I expected, but it's not completely out of the blue. And I guess this is something that is normal to me, because I've been kind of on the bleeding edge of technology throughout a lot of my career, working on MMOs, back in 2000. Like, there really wasn't a lot of foundational tech, or there was no books out there. It was just trying to figure out how we make these massive worlds work. When you're working with brand new technologies, there's a lot of unknowns, and there are even a lot of known unknowns, let alone the unknown unknowns. And that's one of the challenges of working with Immutable X. We've got to sort of work through those, and sometimes they take longer than we would like. But at the same time, you get to create some of these amazing new technologies that solve a lot of the problems that I know we've had. Just the volume of trading we've had of rather low valued cards has been a huge point of pride for me with Immutable X in the marketplace, and that is something that drew me to Immutable, from the sort of tradition in gaming world. Rather than cards being poofed in some mythical database, the fact that people can, for fairly low values, go out and build key parts of the collection is something that I really wanted, and I'm super happy to see.
Yeah, I think that's also understandable. The delays and problems that you run into being so far on the forefront of NFT gaming, like working with the blockchain. So it is very exciting, though. It's nice to be here early and to see this type of development being done. I thought this was the best application of NFTs I'd heard of when I first heard about it. So the work is appreciated.
It certainly has been a learning experience for me too. It's like on some level, it's like I've been making games for 20 years. Like I'm old and experienced, and look at these gray hairs in my beard. I've been around the block, and it's like the rules on the NFT side have changed so much in the last 2 years. Like it's what I came into back in July of 2019. Like the rules are so different now. Gas costs, everything has changed in such a short period of time, and it's one of the biggest challenges of this, but also what makes it so exciting each day to sort of get up and tackle this, because it is new and evolving. On the flip side of it, one of the great things about traditional gaming is like a lot of these things are solved. If you're doing credit card payments and you've got databases in AWS, it's like boom, easy. You build it, it's done. And there is a frustrating part of this where it's like, great, we get to go rebuild purchasing yet again because things have changed. But I'll take that part of it for sort of the fun along the way.
All right. So next, I wanted to talk about, we know where the IMX roadmap is at and where it's going. I wanted to talk about the direction of game development and outside of IMX. So I wanted to know what the primary areas of focus are right now for the team outside of that.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to
go? Either or.
I could jump in and then you come in and follow up with the extra detail. I tried to touch on this in the dev update. So basically, where we're at right now, we're kind of locking off our kind of quarterly planning for the time ahead, heading into the end of the first half of the year. So you'll be seeing that Trello board and things populating a bit more. But in terms of how the teams are structured, we've got some people focusing very specifically on stability and kind of quality of life things. So just making sure that, your game client is stable. We're responding to, the pain points you guys are identifying more quickly and in a more agile way. We're releasing smaller updates more frequently, which is great because it allows us to kind of test, see where things are kind of, working, not working, and moving with more agility. So I think you'll see a lot of really big stability improvements over the course of the quarter. It's not just that. We've also got, people working on gameplay. We've got some expansions coming up, which, I'm sure I would love to give more details on, but I'm not privy to talk about those at this stage. So that's kind of what we're going to. So I'll let Clay pick up from there, and he can fill in anything I've missed. Yeah, so it is a little bit tricky, and this is actually one of the things I wanted to talk to right now. And that was actually really fun because I'm like, all right, has everything actually communicated clearly through on where we're going? Like, am I going to get any surprises? But Camille's kind of hit it on the head. In that we are in an interesting period in the game's development right now, in that we're going through a compression after a pretty game buster Q1. And in Q1, we actually proved out a lot of our theories around how we can scale the game. Like stay played, get paid is one of those sort of foundational pieces that we believed was going to work, where instead of going to a major platform, be it Reddit or Facebook, and spending a ton of money on ads there, it's like, can we create systems where we're basically feeding back into our player base? And that worked really well outside of like overall scalability. It sort of reached the limits of what it could do
with our current sort of existing processes. And when it comes to like even Immutable X, and we've got this first couple of stages out of the way, but we have a lot of work left to do to get from here to where it's easy. It's still at a point where it's accessible to sort of crypto natives and early adopters of the space, but it's not at the point yet where I would say your typical hardcore casual gamer is going to understand what's going on and accept it, particularly with just some of the resistance we're seeing to NFTs in the game, the greater gaming space right now, which is something to dive into at some point, which is quite curious about some of it. But we are in a building period for the game in Q2 where we're rebuilding some of those systems that had already existed and rebuilding them looking at sustainability as the primary outcome. This is rebuilding the systems that we have tested and tried and used, and we have seen where they worked, to get them to a place where they can grow sustainably with the game. So it's not that, okay, this is going to get us to 10,000 users and it's going to break, but this can scale to 100,000 users or 1 million users to get us to sort of those long-term goals. And it's never easy. I know from my side, I would prefer to just continue growing and scaling, but we are in this period where we're sort of going back and rebuilding. And I can understand from the player side of things, that's not always the most exciting side of things, because when we come out of this, in a lot of cases, it's going to be systems that work largely the same way that they did before, except that they can actually scale into the future. The other part that Meals didn't quite touch on is we do have a team that is working on mobile. We had a really interesting Reddit post the other day, how Unity has the ability to just kick out mobile apps and boom, you're done. We should just have a Gods Unchained mobile app. And while it's true, Unity makes it pretty easy to make a mobile build. There's a pretty huge gap between having a build and then having an actual functional app on the phone. That said, we've got some good progress there, and we've grown that team quite a bit in this quarter to tackle not just the core app itself and the gameplay, but some of the surrounding stuff in the launcher that then makes that functional. So looking to see some pretty interesting progress on that front over the course of Q2. And I think I've said it a billion times too, but obviously a lot of effort going into the IMX roadmap.
Awesome. Well,
does that answer the question?
Yeah, awesome.
Just a couple of things.
yeah, I'm actually really excited to hear about the mobile one too. That's definitely something that personally my friends have asked me about a lot when I tell them, about the game. They're like, is there a way I can play it on mobile yet? So I know that's a big ask and probably going to be good for growth. But like you said, a lot of these updates are scaling, which aren't the most exciting, but are necessary for the future of the game. So. See, is there anything I guess the last question I have just on the development, is there anything new and exciting you haven't talked about publicly yet that you can talk about today?
Without getting in trouble with somebody? I'm not exactly sure. This is one that I'd been thinking on. I'm like, do I have something that I can let slip that won't get me in trouble with somebody on the team? Let me think on that just a little bit more. I might have to come back to you. I've got all sorts of little inconsequential things I could say, but give me a little bit more time. I'll let that sit in the back of the brain.
Okay, looks like
I'm also gonna play it a bit cautiously with that question.
I thought that would be a little dicey. It looks like the people are interested in the new set, so anything around that would be cool. But if you think of anything, we'll come back to that later.
I can actually talk to that without spoiling anything, I think. So, Niels, prepare to just scream into the mic if I'm starting to go anywhere bad. But one of the things that I know I'm excited with the upcoming set, because we've tested it quite a bit internally, is when it comes to overall balance of the game. One of the challenges we've got with sort of our general approach, and I guess we'll probably speak to this more later, is we are trying to do sort of additive balance. And when it comes to the next expansion, there are some really cool mechanics that add to the possibility space of the game that will fundamentally change the meta. And I know for me as a designer, seeing what the team has done to sort of not negate it, the sort of status quo, but shift and rebuild it with the expansion, without sort of going into the other way you could do it is just like making a bunch of overpowered cards to completely change things. Like it adds into the overall matrix of what we've built in a really nice way, and I know I'm looking forward to playing it on live.
Awesome.
That maybe talks a little bit about the share something that hasn't been shared before, but that's saying a lot of nothing while saying things.
It is exciting to hear though that's a focus or direction of the new set. That definitely is some interesting information. Probably reassuring to some, less reassuring to others, but depends what you like. All right, so this is a question that I thought was just really important to ask. I don't know if this has been touched on a bunch already, but a lot of commitments have been made around Genesis being evergreen. For those of you that don't know, that means that the set will never rotate out of the primary format, as well as the card stats on those Genesis cards being permanently locked at minting. And I was wondering how the team works around these restrictions and how they feel at this point about being able to stay committed to that in the future.
Yeah. Well, if you want to hear something that I don't think I've said before, is I know when I joined, I didn't learn of that commitment until I think sometime around September or November of 2019. I just about had a heart attack. I'm like, I know enough about card games to know just how much harder this makes our challenge. And yeah, no being shy there. It makes it a much more difficult challenge to keep the overall balance of the game in check. But it is something that we're committed to. We may not always be as fast as people would like, but when we can make commitments, we want people to be able to have faith that Immutable is going to follow through with them, even if it's going to take some time to get there. And when it comes to Genesis, that's where we're at. This touches back to what I had talked about, sort of additive balance. So one of the easier ways to approach this with locked cards is just banning, where it's just like, great, this card is overpowered, boom, banned, or it's restricted. You can only, if instead of 2 copies, you can only have 1. There are sort of like just negative forms of balance where you just remove them from the equation. There is obviously iterative balance as well, which is sort of off the table at the moment, which would be changing the stats on things. And then there's sort of what I call additive or constructive balance. And this is where things like the Sanctum actually come into a pretty critical play with the overall balance of the game, in that if there are certain cards that are dominating the meta, we can impact that very differently from other games, in that we can add cards to counter those into the Sanctum and sort of give everybody access to a counter to a card that's being a particular problem, through the Sanctum. We can add additional cards in future sets that balance, cards that are giving us trouble in the past. We've got core to play with flexibly, in that we can adjust core cards so that they can help bring balance to the overall meta of the game. So in some ways, we've made our job a lot harder, because we have to go through the sort of constructive balance versus the sort of what I would call just easy balance of just being like, boom, it's banned, or we're going to nerf it. That's a lot easier to use as a tool. But I think it gives us it gives us a greater challenge. It also leads to, I think, a better game overall in the end, in that we look to solve these problems through the gameplay itself, rather than just sort of taking that easy out.
Okay, got you. Yeah, that it seems like a challenging one. I know when I learned about it, I was like, wait, you mean permanent? Like it's permanently in, and we're not going to change the stats. I think that's I'm still coming to terms with this one, but I'm looking forward to. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing I would throw out there is there have been some interesting conversations in Discord with the community just around Genesis and some of the challenges it brings to, and potential future solutions around it. One of the the obvious challenge is though there are close to 7 million Genesis NFTs, in the grand scale of things, it's a pretty limited printing. And if GU grows to where I want it to grow in the coming years, that will be a limitation overall. But I guess I can say with confidence that if we're doing anything there, we're going to be doing it with the community to find solves that work for everybody, rather than just sort of tackling it completely unilaterally. Because again, we want to keep our commitments.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like, even as a new player, I don't have the same stake in it that early adopters do, and I can see it from both sides. So I think it's a difficult one, but I trust and believe in the team's ability to come up with an adequate solution. Yeah, just hoping for the best on that. So I had one that's actually I believe somewhat community focused. I don't know if you can answer this one, Mios, but it's something about PTRs. Something that caught my attention recently was the final balancing changes for trials, and they seem to have come like right before the set was like locked and minted. And I don't participate in the PTR. I haven't got an invite, but I also don't know that many other players around me that do. And I was just wondering if there's going to be plans to expand access to the PTR, and also more plans to test more extensively before the sets get minted.
Yeah, so I think, kind of to that, there's a lot more work going on behind the scenes than you guys might have visibility on. So, balancing for trials was quite extensive. It's kind of, been live since September last year. So, there has been a lot of time to kind of look at the cards and identify where the troublesome ones are. But as to the PTR, I'm super keen to do more events on the PTR. I think it's a wonderful tool. I think, when we put Sealed up on there, the people who were a part of testing Sealed had a really good time. And for us, we got so much great feedback and data from, running that on there and seeing what people thought of it. So I imagine that, as we're starting to hold PTR events more often, or perhaps on a regular cadence, I'll be starting to introduce some more people into the pool. We kept it limited to 100 to begin with, just because, well, one, there's quite a bit of manual processing that goes into getting the account set up for PTR access. But two, it was also kind of like testing the PTR at the same time. So we're like, we're putting 100 players on here, but we don't quite know what's going to happen once everyone's there. Can it handle the load? Let's do a smaller run to begin with, and then build out as we scale up. So, I mean, for what I imagine the PTR kind of doing would be that, for limited windows, maybe 1 to 2 days midweek, we would kind of open up the PTR and you would have access to maybe, particular sets or new game modes or releases. And it would kind of be a concentrated window where, one of the concerns that PTR players would have had if you guys have been a part of it in the chat was that, sometimes there's not people on at the time that you want to play, and your queue time's really long, and you kind of don't want to go there anymore because, it's taking a long time to find a match for someone in Sealed, for example. So I think by doing the concentrated window and being like, okay, from this time till this time, you can expect that there are going to be people in here and the team's going to be in here too. We can all kind of jump in and have a good time, and it's kind of more open to everybody. That's the place where I would like to see it going, basically.
The other thing I would comment on just really quickly is on the balance side of things, and that there were lots of balance changes to trials over the course of the set before we went to lock. And some of it for me too comes to the changes that the team is making, sort of the scale of it. And I know for me, I've always visualized it as sort of a pendulum. So when it comes to balance, usually early on, you're making some big swings, so that pendulum is going back and forth pretty wildly as you're trying to hone in on the perfect balance, and you're never going to get it quite right. It's always going to have some deviations. The possibility space is just too huge. But over the course of trials, we're balancing in and we're trying to hone in, and some of those last changes are just little changes in the overall balance that aren't a big swing, so we're fairly comfortable with them. We watched things pretty closely in the final days after that last change to see if it had the intended results. If they had not and something had gone wrong, we may have changed more. But yeah, some of it just comes down to the magnitude of what those changes are and our sort of general confidence in them.
Got you. Yeah, I like that idea of having the short windows. That's actually what I was thinking of, is having a short window and then maybe incentivizing players. If you all come on, take part in this event, maybe we'll give you some rewards back in the main client. So I think that's spot on. I like that one. So the next question I have is on kind of the idea of the limited amount of cards and how growth is going to happen. I was wondering what the thoughts on card supply going into the future are, and I know you touched a little bit on this already, but we've seen this recent 7x increase in players, active players, and if you were to pick, say, Genesis rares, that would, in every one of these new players, or every one of these current players wanted a playset, then we'd pretty much be out of available rares here. So are there any plans, like creative plans, that you can share on how to deal with scarcity in the future?
Yeah, so some of this actually goes back to our overall design of the game and balance of the game, in that, one of our goals, for instance, was that somebody who is just playing with core and welcome set cards can get up to Mythic. Like, those cards have enough power in them that you can carry through all the way. Genesis makes it easier, Trials makes it easier, but they're not required. And that is actually a pretty important distinction. There's plenty of ways to do balance so that Genesis is required. If you don't have Genesis, you can't compete. And that's not where we're at. And in terms of dealing with scarcity, one of the ways that we maintain this balance overall is keeping that philosophy moving forward. With, as we hit X2 and beyond, you aren't required to have a full set of Genesis or a full set of Trials to continue to compete. Let's look at this a different way, though, and let's assume that that's not true, and that we get to a world where Genesis is absolutely required. Like, if people want to compete, they have to have Genesis. The community is up in arms. We need more Genesis cards in to actually make the game playable. There, I cannot say for sure what the solution is, but some of the things that I know I've talked with people in the community about are things like, we've got the Genesis holders, and they have the actual cards. Do we work with the community to come to some sort of agreement where we fracture the existing NFTs to create more, and the people who hold the originals benefit from that? One of the ways I've looked at addressing this is actually through sort of fusing. So we've talked about fusing as a methodology for taking many lower rarity cards and then fusing them up ultimately to a diamond. And another way that we could address the scarcity problem is having that work in reverse. So you can basically split a diamond card into many meteorite cards. And some of this goes with where are you on the spectrum of different types of players? If you're looking for that sort of NFT scarcity, you're going to be looking for diamonds. If you want to play the game, a meteor version of the card is going to get you there. Depending on just how scarce things are, meteors could be very valuable. It could actually make sense to sort of split things down. I can't say for sure exactly which approach that we'll use because we haven't hit the problem just yet, but there is a space to play in. And again, when we get there, much like we've done in the past, we're going to talk to the community about it. And ultimately, I think now I have to decide just how coy I want to be. Ultimately, when it comes to making decisions like this with the community, I think we can do better than just having a survey. I think there's some methods we can use to get real and sort of measured feedback from the people who have a huge stake in our game. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I figured that would be a tough one. It's kind of far out in the future, so I just want to know what the company's thoughts were. So
yeah, and some of it too is like holding pattern, like allowing cards to not just fuse into higher rarity, but then sort of go down to lower rarity. It buys us time, but even then, there's still a very limited number of sort of total copies of any given card. So it's not, that's like not a ultimate solution either.
Yeah, So we don't have too much more time, so I wanted to ask one more. This one's a little bit tougher, and it's a question that I feel I do need to ask, especially for my viewers. I wanted to know what the team's view on the current balance of Genesis cards and in general the current meta game state is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually have a note from the team and make sure that I don't say anything out of place. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, so when it comes to the overall balance of things with Genesis, we had essentially come with the approach that if you think of a system where each card has sort of a point value total, Genesis cards have slightly more points available to them than Core or Trial of the Gods, or definitely more than Welcome Sets cards. So they are at an increased sort of tier of power. But again, what is that sort of scale of extra power? They're clearly superior, but we think we have that balance correctly, so they're not, again, abusively superior, perhaps with a few exceptions to cards that I know even I have some challenges with when I'm playing. The thing that we didn't want to do, and this sort of comes to that commitment I talked about earlier about sort of preserving the balance going forward, is just going through power creep. So I don't think the game would ultimately work with each set we're just creeping the power. So like once the next set comes out, it's 1.5 times more powerful than Trials, and then the next set, because that ultimately leads to sort of a path to ruin. In some ways, it's easier in the short term because as a company, it's like you're saying clearly you need to buy this stuff if you want to keep competing, but that's not the path that we want to go down. It does mean then that your Genesis continues to have an edge. One of the things that's going to be really interesting to look at once the Genesis minting is completed on Immutable X is what that does to the overall balance and meta of the game. Because right now, perhaps most of our players have played against a Genesis card, but when you look at the overall player base of monthly active users, very, very small percentage of players have ever played with a Genesis card. So one of the first points along this path of sort of figuring out where it's going to be ultimately is what happens when the entire player base can gain access to Genesis cards, and where does that take? That's sort of one step along the way.
I think that's a really interesting point that I hadn't really quite thought of. Is the current model of card games is almost like, well, we'll sell you the better cards, and you have to, and we're gonna have that power creep built into our business model because it's most beneficial for us. And the kind of opposite stance has been taken by Immutable and Gods Unchained here, where it's like we're going to try to avoid that, maybe a little too much, but try to avoid that, which actually gives the value to the holders of the cards. And doesn't just overshadow what they just printed continuously. And I hadn't really thought of it that way.
It's more challenging. We certainly like to give ourselves challenging problems, but I do think if we can get it right, it does lead to a better game overall. Because one of the concepts that I've always loved since I went to a talk by Will Wright at GDC is the concept of possibility space. And when you're going through power creep, each new set doesn't actually expand the possibility space of the game, because as you're bringing this new set in, you're obviating a whole swath of cards. So even though you've added more cards into the mix, the possibility space of the game and what can be played hasn't necessarily grown. In theory, if we do this correctly on the path that we're on, each new card set increases the overall possibility space of the game. It keeps all of these cards potentially playable. And it's harder, but it's a path I'm excited to continue to try to go down. I can say when it comes to sort of the existing meta, I know the team is working right now on not massive balance patch, but I would call a sizable one, and that the meta right now is not doing exactly what we would like. Overall, there's a pretty good balance in terms of win rate, but when we look at just sort of general play, nature is obviously dominating play right now, and we believe we understand why that's happening. So some of the balance changes that we're looking to make is to ensure that, particularly for we're seeing a lot of newer users sort of leaning towards nature, that there are good options for the other gods for players who want to be able to compete up at that sort of mythic tier without necessarily having a ton of Genesis or even Trials cards. So don't know that we'll get it completely readjusted in the first go. It may take a couple of tries, but we want to get back into a better place that we've been in the past, where there's more sort of balance between the different domains, so that each has roughly the same share. It's never going to be quite right.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would speak more on that, but we're very limited here on time. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on these two questions from Reddit very quickly. First question is from Exiled 1985. How's it going with the search for a new partner for credit and debit card transactions?
I'll let Clay tackle that one.
Yeah, conversations are happening, but when it comes to this and the blockchain space, these are conversations that they're not at even my level. This is there's more lawyers involved in this than in a lot of other discussions. So don't have a clear timeline on this, but we are talking to potential partners.
Got it. Okay, and then last one. This one's a big one, big topic for a lot of people, and got support on Reddit. This is from UEB, and it's matchmaking. What are the plans and current ETA for a reworked matchmaking system? They continue, we all know this single-handedly has been the biggest loss of player numbers as new players getting thrown into Mythic or Extreme Genesis over and over.
Yeah, so I don't know if I necessarily agree that we all know. With the way the current matchmaking system works, a new player isn't going to be paired with a mythic. The maximum sort of banding is 3 ranks of difference. So I don't I've looked into this and I haven't seen bronze brand new players getting paired with mythics. This isn't at the same time to say this isn't a challenge. There's this point, particularly when you get to Art Gold, where you're not necessarily at mythic tier, but at that stage you're getting paired against mythic players, and I've been there, and oh my gosh, it's like getting punched in the face after you're just cruising along, because kind of up to there it's like, hey, things are great, and all of a sudden you're encountering mythic players, and that's the point where it hurts. And okay, I'm gonna actually revise my statement in that new players who are really motivated can actually get that high fairly quickly. So I can see how that translates through, because it is a sort of gut punch point. I can say that the team is looking at our current matchmaking approach. It is very basic right now. We have a couple of solutions that we've been looking at internally, but we haven't quite been happy with. Trying to balance out sort of the length of time you're spending in a queue with the sort of quality of match. But it's something that I would expect that we're going to see some iteration on over the course of the next quarter, because it can definitely be better than it is today.
Yeah, I one thing that I thought was interesting in doing my research on this is I went back and I was looking at some posts about a year ago, and one of them was complaining about queue times in excess of 1 minute, and I found that interesting because it's like I've also seen people, like when I brought that up on stream, people are like, well, I'd gladly wait in a minute to not have to deal with those wild pairings. So I think I don't know. You can't.
Those people may say that, but it's not actually true. And I've got lots of data from my time making games even outside of Gods Unchained, in that when it comes to one-on-one matchmaking, there's this mystical point that the data proves that after 20 seconds, people get antsy. Like if it happens in 19.9 seconds, people are generally going to be okay with it. But after 20 seconds of waiting in queue, the rate at which people drop out of queue and then re-queue just goes up in this exponential curve. And by the time you get to a minute, most people have dropped out and re-queued because they think it's going to be broken. And this is true, even in games with far, far more players than we have. So it is a balancing act. Particularly, I want to, this comes back to the new players, like new players getting upset because they're hitting, the big boys, especially if they've rocketed up the ranks. This is really important when it comes to a brand new player's first matches as well, because the first time you're playing the game if you're waiting a minute, the likelihood that you will never play a game goes up a lot. So it's not as easy as saying that a minute is acceptable. Some of it may be that we've got to be, even if it's a bad matchup, getting a person into their first game, even if they lose, can be better than waiting too long and having them never play.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be something that like it's just you have to have the scale and the amount of players to reduce that the range that people can queue in, and it's hard to get around that. So I understand that.
But at the same time, it's not where we want it to be. It will get better.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, do we still have time to see a game? I think Meals said not sure on the stability of the laptop. Are you sure you don't want to at least give it a shot?
Look, I don't want to freeze you guys up for the show match, I'd feel bad if people were backing me and I let you down. So
I mean,
I might
happy to just have somebody from chat join and I'll do a direct challenge.
Okay.
Ooh, who's gonna step up?
Okay, we could do that. Someone has. So here's the thing. Meals is not 100% that the laptop's going to be able to get through the game. So if anyone wants to do a 1v1 right now, live casted by myself against Clay, it can happen. Where's Mirage when you need him? Nottamali is nominating Shaleby. Wait, Shaleby's nominating Nottamali.
So yeah, for you, Lion, I'll use the same challenge code as the password for the OBS Ninja for the screen sharing.
Okay, hold on. I'm confused about that. Did you? So you're just going to that other link, right? The screen sharing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was saying like for the direct challenge for this, having the challenge code be the password for that link.
Okay, should I just, what I guess I can do is I could just post that into the Discord and whoever joins first, I mean.
Works for me.
Or into the Twitch stream. Let's do that. So, all right. I am going to be posting the matchup code into the chat right now. Whoever gets in the queue first, that's who's playing against Clay. All right. I hope this is the right one.
Yeah, it's just the Clay plays all lowercase.
Okay, wonderful. That's what I put, so nailed it.
Good luck to whoever gets it.
Yeah, I've been in queue for 36 seconds now, and I need to unqueue. Clearly, it's not working.
Yeah, definitely have to try again. May not play the game again, actually.
All right. Sharing screen. Select screen to share. Share.
Okay, let me know when it's going, and then I'll switch over there. I'll mute Discord for the cast, and then I'll jump back in, and we'll do just a quick goodbye. Sadly.
Yep, I'll stick around until then too.
Okay, thanks, Milos. Appreciate that. All right.
All right, synchronizing players.
Okay, I'm gonna jump over there. Works. All right, here we go, everyone. We have who got it? Nottamali versus Clay live. All right. Okay. What is it? We're seeing Olympian guards and golden harp. All right. Who can we get a prediction going? I don't know if I can do this. Can any mods in the building? But ask Nottamali, but Nottamali is playing right now. Okay. So we have the Pyramid Warden out from Nottamali. Did not expect that. Looks like Clay going to bag the Olympian Guard. Not quite a Pyramid Warden, but still a pretty good card. I like the card. Let me see if I can get this prediction. I think it's a little bit late here, but hold on. Prediction. Okay. Wins. I know this is getting got 30 seconds to submit or right. Okay, there you go. 30 seconds to get in this. So I got to catch back up. So it looks like Nottamali playing some Guild Deception here. Yeah, Guild Rush Deception with cheat. So Clay is thinking about the Golden Harp here. Gonna get some defenders out. Let's see though, what's the decision here? So it's a very short window for the prediction. All right. Debating now. I don't think anything has died, so not going to get anything back from the Pyramid Warden right now. Yeah, the prediction was like 2 seconds long. My apologies, yo. My apologies. I said there's a 30-second window. The game's already started. I feel like I'm compromising the integrity of the vote. There's only so much I can do here. I should have modded you. All right, so gonna Umber there. I missed what happened with the Pyramid Warden. So, ooh, finishes it off with a cheat. That's rough. And has the Hypnotist to, oh, or just taking out the Shield Bearer. Not even gonna risk it. All right, so unfortunately doesn't have the board to get the bonus 1 health off the Parthian Democracy. That makes sense. That makes sense. Gonna just draw a card and pass for now. We got Molly dropping the heat though, showing no mercy over there. The guild creatures, the inconspicuous carriage. Okay, but Clay drawing the Highborn Knight. The bonus 1 health from the Parthian. Okay, and then gonna buff it with the Aging Veteran. So starting to put up a wall there, but still we have the cheat from Deception. So the front line is not going to be as effective, but it does have Protected and Ward. Okay, gonna be drawing a card here. Maybe Lux into the Canonize. We'll see though. Ooh, that's a very formidable board over there. It's not looking good for Clay right now. Down to 21 health. Pops the ward on the Highborn Knight and still has the Hypnotist out, so something's going to sleep. And it is the Highborn Knight, so oof. Takes a lot of power off the board there. Would have been nice to be able to swing in, clear, and then go heal that creature back up. Rough luck there. Nottamali coming out, guns blazing. He is going to go ahead and try the Lights Levy here on the inconspicuous carriage. No, this is live. This is just a match. They just challenged. Yeah, for Clay, or if you've ever seen me play one-on-ones versus Dan the Dev, the devs all have the ability to play with any card. They just cannot sell them. They're not actually on the blockchain. They're just developers' access cards. So it looks like Clay may be stabilizing here. All right, so now it's just down to 1 creature for each player at this point. The Helios Guardian, okay. But gonna be able to draw again off that Mercenary. Oh, the board's just back to almost full from Nottamali. Relentless. Absolutely relentless. So Clay thinking about the Lysandra here. Now I can't actually remember what the card does, which, lucky for us, Rid made a wonderful bot that is going to help me remember here. Start your turn. This and gain 1 strength. Okay. Ah, there we go. Clay on the assist. No, devs cannot own cards. Yo, Yoda with the 5 gifted subs. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry, we do have the notifications off. I was just gonna have them off until the end of this, but thank you, thank you. All right, so Lysander comes down, but Molly just has the power on the board to clear. Gonna be drawing another card there. Still down to, okay, gonna be 2 in hand now, I believe, if the cards I see are up to date. Wow, gets the Olympian guard, gets 2 Olympian guards. Wow, that's rough. So, oh, because it's the next one off the top. That's right, that's right. Oh, that's not what you like to see. And they get the +1, right? They got the +1 from the +1 health from the Parthian Democracy. It's an actual copy of the next card. That's crazy. That is crazy. So making quick work of the other Olympian guard. The betrayal is real. And then gonna also got the Lights Levy. Gonna go ahead and Lights Levy. It's looking bad right now for Clay. Nottamali's got him on the ropes. And he only has the world's smallest golden harp to play this time. It's wrong instrument, but looks like it might be the right application here. Looks like people are calling it. See though. We got the Isadora out and making Olympian guards, but will it be enough? So we have, gonna go ahead and clear. There was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on the board, so it wasn't quite enough for lethal. Just gonna go ahead and secure the victory. No risk being taken by Nottamali. What an interesting game to see, though. Definitely not your typical meta matchup. Yeah, Guild Deception, it is a fun time. I like it. I like the deck, for sure. I mean, here's the thing, though, is where are the Shadow of Lethanons? Where are the Shadow of Lethanons? Okay, so Nottamali gonna go ahead and take that one. Let's get back in and talk to Clay about what happened there. Oh, let's go back here. All right, let me unmute Discord so we can chat. Well, GG's, Clay. GG's, everyone.
GGs. Yeah, nothing quite like getting beat down by your own deck. I think the only misplay that stood out is I should have gone. Gosh, I'm blanking on the card's name. The 1/3 that steals cards. I should have gone for that instead of the carriage. But
oh, and with the levy.
Yeah, I thought I could get the board clear and then take it out, but yeah, not quite there. It was a good match.
Yeah.
Still trying to make light work.
Yeah, congratulations, Nottamali. That one you can keep that one forever. That's very exciting. But thank you very much for being willing to play and doing that, Clay. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. And thank you both so much for just taking the time to be on and to talk to people, to be able to interface with both, Clay, Meals, both of you live, and with, to have the chat here and just bridge that community to developer I guess situation. It's been awesome. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us around. You guys might not have visibility on this behind the scenes, but Lion has been chasing us to get this across the line and to get us on. And we really appreciate that. So yeah, thanks for setting this up and giving us an opportunity to come on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, good luck with development, and we'll see you some other time. Cheers.
Yep, see you in the Discord. Cheers. Bye-bye.